Welcome back, everyone. My name is Nick Neidenbach, and this is the third in a series of videos I'm putting together to demonstrate how I assemble prop weapons. In the first two episodes, we cut the base blade for our Hyperion Gunblade, and we began to shape it through sanding. And as you can see here, we've come quite a long ways from a sheet of plywood, but there's still some work to be done. Today, in this episode, I'm going to show how to fill some of the voids and imperfections in the wood, and then we'll move on to cutting the pieces for the gunblade handle. For most of this, we'll use wood putty, and you can use almost any brand of wood putty. I'm using Elmer's wood filler. It's sandable, but you'll want to make sure you can do, because we're going to be covering everything. We want to sand it down as smooth as possible, and this will let us hide the imperfections in the wood itself. As you can see, the flaw in the wood is rather minor, and we're pretty lucky it's a pretty high quality piece of wood. Sometimes you'll get rather dramatic knots in the wood that will take some more work, but it can all be done using wood putty, because we're going to cover it up with paint, so there's no real worries of anybody noticing after we're done. To begin, we're going to take just a generous dab of the putty and just work it into the gap. And we'll want to, it's okay to be sloppy here. We just want to make sure that there is plenty there, so that when we sand it down, it'll be completely smooth. So you'll really want to have it be almost a bump sticking up a little bit. And it takes a while to dry, so we'll come back to that later. We're going to let this dry, and now we'll begin to address the handle. I'm going to demonstrate two different ways of cutting the pieces that we'll be assembling to form the handle of the gunblade. The first uses an X-Acto knife and a cutting mat in order to cut out the piece we want to work with. You see this? This is one of the pieces we're going to be using, and just like the blade, it's printed out and then spray tacked adhesive attached to a piece of wood. In this case, it's 1/8 inch thick basswood. So we're going to begin cutting. Again, I want to remind everyone, eye protection is very important, and we're going to be cutting with this very sharp, very small blade. It is a dangerous tool to work with, so I expect anyone under 18 years old to have a parent supervising when you're doing this, please. And as you can see, I'm just going to be taking the knife and scoring along the lines and pressing down to cut through the material to free the piece. I'm using a cutting mat in order to protect the work surface, and you can also use like a hobby saw or some other more fine saws in order to do this. But I'm demonstrating what I started with in the beginning. My first gun blade was cut, all the pieces were cut using the X-Acto knife, and so we'll begin. And we're just following along, tracing along the outside edge, and just applying a firm downward pressure. You don't want to push too much because we don't want to break the blade. You just want to slowly cut through. As you can see, the cut that we've already made here is come through on the back, and that way we know we're cutting through. This does take a while. You just have to be patient, take it slowly, make sure you have plenty of time to work. So you'll sometimes see that matching the corners is a little tricky, and you might have to go over and recut them a couple times just to make sure that it's cut all the way through. We have one of the pieces that we'll be building up our handle with. The second method I'd like to demonstrate uses a special kind of power saw called a scroll saw. I'll be setting the scroll saw up and then demonstrating how I cut pieces using that. This won't be a full-blown scroll saw demonstration, but there are some very, very good resources on the internet that show how best to use a scroll saw. This is a scroll saw. What it is it's a very fine saw blade connected to a movable arm and a motor. And the saw blade goes up and down very, very quickly, and the user we'll move the piece of wood around the blade, cutting out very complex curves and other shapes. We have the same piece that we cut with the X-Acto knife that I'm now going to cut with the scroll saw. Once again, eye protection, very important. And as you can see, we now have the same piece we did the X-Acto knife cut using a scroll saw. So now we've completed all of our pieces that we're going to use to build up the handle. We have the trigger guard and the trigger. A base piece for the right and left hand side, top piece right and left hand side. We have part of the blade detail. Once we glue it, we're going to go and use the same kind of wood putty to hide all of these seams. Speaking of wood putty, let's take a look at that patch we did at the beginning of the episode. It's been some time as I have been cutting out the pieces, and we're going to gently sand down the dried part. I'm not sure if the camera will pick this up, but you can see here where the wood putty has dried to a powdery, solid consistency. We're going to sand that down so that when we're ready to prime it and paint it, no one will know that there was a flaw there. That's done using a sanding block so that we maintain a nice, flat, smooth surface. So you see, we've sanded away the excess putty, and now that flaw is gone. So, next episode, we're going to do some detailed sanding of the handle pieces and glue them to the handle, so I hope you'll join me then.